Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. Before I begin, I will remind Council that this portion of the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube. I will start with a roll call of Council for the benefit of those watching the meeting. I, Councillor Merlihan, am present and will be chairing this meeting. Mayor Shantz.
I'm here.
Councillor Martin. Councillor McMillan.
Present.
Councillor Redekop
Present.
and Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Thank you. Welcome all to tonight's meeting. I would have a public resolution to reconvene into open session. Mayor Shantz and Councillor Martin, all those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, there are no items to come forward from the closed session. And we're going to start off this evening's meeting with a public meeting. The following portion of the meeting is for information only, and no decisions will be made tonight. Any questions can be directed to Development Services staff following the meeting. I declare the planning public meeting to be open. Our first public meeting is for zone change application DS 45 2021. And our brand new Director of Development Services, Deanne Fries, is going to make that introduction. And fun fact, this is Ms. Fries's first report to council, so very exciting for all of us, I'm sure. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I'm actually just covering for David, who couldn't be here today, so I didn't write this report, but anyway. So the public meeting tonight, the property address is 898 Arthur Street North. It's located on the east side of Arthur Street, north of the Elmira settlement area. The property currently contains an existing residential dwelling, some farm buildings, and an existing workshop, woodworking workshop. The property size is 4.9 hectares and is surrounded by other agricultural operations and related buildings. The applicant is proposing to expand the existing woodworking shop from the legal non-conforming existing 172 meters squared to 302 meters squared. It will be an expansion entirely within the existing building. There's no outdoor storage. There's 4 existing parking spaces on the property for this business, and there's 4 employees, 2 which reside on the property. And the woodworking operation is permitted as an on-farm diversified use, but because this property is only 4.9 hectares, and the minimum size in the zoning bylaw to permit the non-farm or the on-farm diversified use is actually 6.0 hectares. So therefore, the zoning bylaw amendment is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Fries? Okay, seeing none. And I guess the consultants, Leah Clark and Trevor Hawkins, would they be speaking to this tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have a presentation, and Leah Clark from our office is going to present. And I believe she's going to share her screen so that committee can see the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Merlihan. I don't think I have screen sharing permission right now.
Leah, please proceed and share your screen.
Great. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, we're good.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and good evening. The proposed application is for a zoning bylaw amendment to permit the expansion of an existing industrial use on the subject lands municipally known as 989 Arthur Street North. To help orient council to the site, you'll see the subject lands are outlined in red in the image above, and the subject lands are on the east side of Arthur Street North, generally surrounded by agricultural and rural residential uses. Additional uses in the area include the Mennonite Meeting House located to the north of the subject lands, the Elmira Produce Auction Cooperative located to the west, a transportation operation is located to the south, and the Kanagajig Creek is located to the east of the subject lands as well. The subject lands are 4.9 hectares in size and contain an existing single detached dwelling, which can be seen in the background of the image on the left, a barn, which can be seen in the bottom right image, an accessory farm building, a storage building, a woodworking shop building, which is located in the left image, and the eastern portion of the lot is farmed. The existing farm cluster is accessed by the existing gravel driveway, which is seen in the top right image. The proposal is to permit a minor expansion of the existing woodworking shop use within the existing building, and there's no proposed expansion to the existing building and no other changes to the site, including no changes to the driveway or parking area, and the farm building cluster would also remain exactly as it is today. The regional official plan designates the lands as prime agricultural area and permits the existing use on the site. The township official plan designates the lands as rural and permits minor additions to or the intensification of existing industrial uses located outside of rural settlement areas. And as such, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment does conform to the township official plan. The zoning bylaw designates the lands as agricultural, and the proposed amendment would recognize the existing woodworking shop use on the property and permit the minor intensification of the use with a maximum ground floor area of 302 square meters. The zoning bylaw amendment also proposes 4 parking spaces on the property, 2 to allow for parking for employees who do not reside on the property, and 2 for customers, which would allow overlap between individual customers attending the site. The site is not expected to generate any significant traffic. In conclusion, the proposed minor expansion to the woodworking shop will be contained in the existing building and will not impact the farm building cluster or the agricultural lands. The site access will be maintained from Arthur Street North, and the minor intensification isn't expected to result in any negative impacts on the regional road. The expansion of the use is permitted by the regional official plan, and a land use compatibility assessment was conducted and concluded that the expansion will not negatively impact any surrounding uses. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will introduce a site-specific exemption for the lands to recognize the existing use and regulate its size. Thank you for your attention, and we'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Council, if anybody has any questions of the delegates, now would be the time. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody with questions. So thank you very much for your presentation to council. As there are no further speakers, I declare the planning public meeting to be closed.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we are going to move on to delegations. I just have some instructions for delegations. Please leave your video turned off and your microphone muted until you are called to speak. Each speaker has a maximum of 7 minutes. The clerk will let the chair know when your speaking time is up. Once you're finished, please turn off your microphone and camera off again. You may leave after your delegation or stay on the meeting as long as you keep your camera and microphone turned off. We're going to go to zone change application DS 44 2021, and I'm going to ask Mr. Vink, our manager of planning, to introduce this report. Welcome to our meeting, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of council. So this is the zone change application for the property at 6681 line 86 Edgar East. It's just under 15 hectares, just located just to the east of Elmira. The application is to permit the farm agricultural related uses on the property, which include the sales and service of farm equipment, the sale of maple syrup supplies, and the bulk sale of maple syrup. On page 2 of the report, it goes through a whole list of what sizes as well as the different locations that the different uses serve. So most of the uses are servicing anything between 10 to 25 kilometers to 50 kilometers of the area, depending on the use. And it also just speaks to the amount of traffic coming and going to the site, which is, although a little higher than some locations, it is on a regional road. So it is a fairly large operation because we're talking about 3 different kind of things taking place at once, but it's all contained in one set area of the property, about 0.58 hectares. So as noted, the applicant's proposing to legalize these uses as on-farm agricultural related uses, not on-farm businesses. So on-farm diversified uses are the ones that are secondary to the farm operations. In this case, we're talking agricultural related uses, which are standalone main uses, basically. They could stand alone. There's different tests for them, and then in the report, staff kind of go through those tests, especially the provincial tests on is it farm-related commercial, compatibility, where we look at whether it's is it dry industrial, the traffic to the site, any other neighboring properties that might be impacted. In this case, there are none. Maintaining that rural character of the area, if it can do that, and just as it's servicing the local area. And as outlined in the report, it does serve the local area, servicing the local farming community. These uses are directly servicing them. They're in near close proximity. Also, I will note, we did get into the report that one of the uses is the sale of the farm maple syrup equipment isn't meant to be a hardware store, so it is going to be directly related to selling basically maple syrup equipment and a wee bit of additional oils in an urban area. Since the use meets the tests as under the provincial policy statement, all the tests in the regional official plan and the township official plan as an agricultural related use, the staff is satisfied that the use to be developed on the property. The proposed zoning, in this case, we're looking to just maximize how much area can take place on the property, so up to 0.6, and the building height, and restrict the use to dry industrial. Part of the zoning will also state that it can't be severed from the property. It'd be difficult to sever it from the use. It will also in the future go through a site plan approval once the zoning is complete. So there'll be site plan approval to look at anything along the lines of landscaping and softening the appearance from the road.
Hey, Jeremy, we're having some problems.
Just in terms of the zoning.
Oh, Mr. Vink?
Pardon me?
We're just having some issues with you freezing up.
Okay.
Maybe it might benefit if you just turn the camera off for now.
Okay. Yeah, turn the camera off. Hopefully it's better.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the zoning bylaw, we did have some conversations with the applicant, the landowner, and well, basically the consultant tonight. They are requesting a bit of a modification into the zoning bylaw to allow flexibility. They may not want to put a second floor in on the addition. They're potentially looking just for a main floor and maybe a basement instead of a second floor. So, and we were also going through the numbers and in terms of size. So on page 19 of Council's package, the very bottom, it refers to 1,002 square meters for indoor. We're going to change that. The correct number should be 1,483 square meters. And we're going to reword that clause for you next week, just to address that change that it could be on a main floor, a basement, or a second floor to total to 1,483. And just make sure that it's properly worded in there. So there is a requested change in that section. Staff has no concerns with that change, and it does adequately reflect generally what's proposed. It will still be 7.6 meters high in overall height, just so you know, so that's not going to change the height of the plane. So if in terms of the recommendation you have before you is to approve the accept the bylaw as provided in the appendix and now as modified. So unless there's any questions, staff is willing to answer them, and the consultant is here tonight to also speak to any questions and answer any comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vink. Council, any questions for Mr. Vink? Okay, nobody. We will ask the delegate, Hugh Handy and Amanda Stellings from the GSP group to come online and address council. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Chair Merlehan. I believe Amanda is on here as well. Just wait for her to come on. Thank you, Chair Merlehan, members of council, staff, and those viewing. I'll be brief this evening. We do appreciate kind of the bit of back and forth today with Mr. Vink and looking at some of the numbers in the proposed bylaw. As Mr. Vink has indicated, I don't think that changes anything. And I believe we also have Edgar Reist on the line on the phone if there's any questions specifically of his operation and how we arrived here this evening in terms of the range of uses. And as I noted, Amanda Stellings is a planner in our office. So with the changes that are proposed, we have reviewed the staff report and are in support of what's before you this evening as modified. And we'll work within the next few days with Mr. Vink and his staff just to make sure coming back to council, the numbers are correct before you. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, council. Does anybody have any questions of our consultants on this matter? Nope. Okay, well, thank you. You can stay on the line or
Okay.
we'll take this back to council and see if we have a recommendation before us. Anybody on council want to move the recommendation or speak to it in any way? Councilor Martin will move it. Okay. And Councilor Redekop will second it. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? And that's carried. So we will, and that's the recommendation as revised. We'll do this again next week with the real thing in front of us and the real wording. So we'll see that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now. The second delegate is myself. I'm going to provide council a brief update on the Heritage Committee work. There's been a work plan and a budget provided in the council package. If you've looked at any heritage work plans and budgets in the past, then this one will look very familiar. But to give council an update of what's kind of happened, I joined the committee in September, and we've got 2 new members, and I'll take this opportunity if there's anybody watching that they want to join the Heritage Committee. We are looking for members. Be great to have people that are intrigued in our heritage here in Woolwich. So things that we've been doing is we've been kind of trying to clean up the last number of years. There's been some plaques and heritage designations that have been done, and it's just completing that work. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to get there was about 12 plaques done, and we're trying to get those all installed. We'd like to get a good portion of them done by the end of the year and finish those off, January, February type thing is our goal on that, to have all the plaques installed that have been designated so far. The other thing you've seen our terms of reference have changed. It came to council maybe a month or so ago, and we're just trying to kind of reset the committee and give everybody a bit of a job and figure out what our duties are as a heritage committee. And a lot of that work is going to happen in January. We have a training session lined up with ministry officials. There's a whole lot of brand new rules and guidance coming down on heritage committees. So it's kind of a good opportunity for a bunch of us that are new on the committee to learn how to make a heritage designation and some of the other fun aspects of all of that. stuff. And then we also have the ghost signs. The ghost signage has been on the books here for the Heritage Committee for a while. There's about 8 or 9 different communities that no longer exist in Woolwich Township. Just writing up the histories, and we're going to do that online to start, but we are going to create some signage in those areas, and that'll be, the signage will take maybe a couple of years to erect, because we will be dealing with the region on many of those locations. But in the meantime, township staff actually, with our new GIS system, came up with a neat little heritage item that our heritage designated properties right now, you'll be able to go onto the website. There'll be a map there. There'll be little dots. You can click on them, and then a image of the property with a brief write-up will be available. I'm not sure if it's live yet, but I'm told it will be by the end of the month for sure. I think at some point this week. So that'll be a new feature. And then in January, we are going to be focusing some of our attention on trying to get a little bit more visibility and have a dedicated spot on the township website. Right now, the Heritage Committee, it might be a little hard to find information because we are basically in the inside of an accordion on one page with a whole lot of stuff on it. So we're hoping to expand that to have our own page and have more images and things. So we'll be working on that in the new year. That really doesn't affect the budget at all. That'll just be work that the committee members are doing. But as far as the budget, it hasn't changed, and that'll be mostly cleaning up plaques and providing. We're aiming for 2 new heritage designations in 2022, but that's about it for an update. That was actually more than I thought it was going to be. Sorry, but if you have any questions on that, I can answer them now, or when we go through budget, if you want to bring up those $4,000 and question it, then I can provide answers. So any questions? Councillor Shantz?
I guess through you to you. Is that how that works? Who's responsible for putting the plaques up? I know this has been on the books for a number of years and it hasn't gotten done. Is it Township, or is it the committee themselves that are actually going to install the plaques?
Yeah, that was one of the stumbling blocks of why they're not up. But now the township has a contractor that is doing the work, and it's being paid out of the committee's budget to install those. So there should be a couple more going up in the next little while. And I think what we want to do is we've been having a hard time getting them installed, clearly, but we're in the new year. We want to, have a little bit of a thing and invite, Mayor Shantz and any members of council that want to come out and do a little bit of a COVID type to do that we can have some photos of the heritage property and a little bit about that. I know we did it, the Heritage Committee had done it a number of years ago for some properties in Elmira, but there might be a couple of those in the new year. So that'll be about it. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, no other questions. We will move on then. No unfinished business. And we have consent items. Does anybody want to move those items for approval? Sorry, I was looking somewhere else. Councillor Shantz and Councillor McMillan will second that. Or you have a question? Okay, Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, I was wondering, we're talking about the correspondence as well.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So I was wondering if we wanted to do something with the Lake of Bays, the one there, and we want to support that at all.
okay, Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, I kind of agreed with, I kind of was thinking that as well. So why don't we move I'll move the approval of consent agenda minus 9.2.2.
Okay, anybody who second that? Councillor Shantz? All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. And we will go to 9.2.2. Councillor Shantz, do you want to talk about that? Or do you want to move it or?
Yeah, I think I'd like to support that. I'm not sure whether it does any good, but I think the more ones that come in should help. I think it's something that we should be supporting because everybody is having the same issue with their bridges and their infrastructure.
Okay, Councillor McMillan?
Yeah, I think I kind of spent a little bit of time on it, and the Lake of Bays actually picked up a request from the Township of Adelaide, and that's what we're seeing. So if Councillor Shantz would second it, I would move that we do exactly what the Lake of Bays did, which is support the Township of Adelaide and then forward it to all of the MPPs and MPs and AMO and everybody who's got a mailing address, basically.
Okay, Mayor Shantz?
Yeah, I wonder if we want to put a little bit more meat to it and talking about the difficulty for smaller communities to find the funding for it, or if we just throw it out there as is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. We have local examples here with our bridges that we could certainly add to that, and I'm sure every community has that. For the public's benefit, what we're talking about is correspondence that we get from other municipalities, and in this case, Adelaide and the Lake of Bays have sent out requests that other councils endorse motions requesting funds from the federal and provincial government for infrastructure in small rural communities. So anyway, just that background. And then Mayor Shantz?
Sorry, just wondering if we can get staff to maybe work up the actual wording and it'll come back next week.
Okay, and Clerk Smith is nodding yes that he will do that. So, so do you want to vote on that next week, or do we need to vote on this tonight?
Mr. Chair, you can just provide us direction and we'll bring it back if you wish.
Okay, are we good with direction? Everybody? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, okay, direction so given. Items for notice information. Notice of a virtual community information session regarding the Elmira Core Area Urban Design Study, November 29th, 2021. So that'll be for downtown Elmira. If anybody out there is interested in that, to find that online. So we're at the staff reports and memos. Clerk Smith is going to give us a verbal update on 2022 council meeting schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring to your attention a mistake that I believe I made here in preparing your 2022 meeting schedule. So if you turn to page 40 of your agendas, you'll see that we did switch the meeting schedule to Mondays as directed by Council. But we also switched any days that we had scheduled for Thursday to Wednesday, thinking that we would sort of switch everything back by one day. And I'm not sure if that was Council's intent when they asked us to switch the meeting day to Monday. So if you look at January, we have 4 budget meetings scheduled in the month of January, and we had scheduled them for Monday and Wednesday. And then also, if you look down to November, we've got orientation scheduled for the new council again on Monday and Wednesday. And I just wanted to ask Council if that was their intent, or if you'd like us to keep the Monday days as the first day of the week and move the second day back to the Thursday of the week. So just looking for direction on that.
Council, any thoughts? Councillor Shantz?
Thursday would suit me better than Wednesday, but if everybody else needs Wednesday, I can make it work.
Okay, Mayor Shantz?
Excuse me, just being aware that Regional Council also meets once a month on Wednesdays.
Okay, so two for Thursday, I guess. Anybody else? Councillor Martin?
I would prefer Thursday.
Okay, I'm fine. So, okay, Councillor McMillan's okay with that. Councillor Redicott? Yeah.
I'm okay.
Okay, so back to Thursday. I guess we can come back to this next week. Is that? Okay, we'll vote on that next week when we have the schedule in front of us. Okay, so next we have the Elmira Streetscape project. I'm going to ask our manager of planning, Jeremy Vink, to come back online. Maybe just leave the video off and introduce that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to members of council. So as you will recall, earlier this year, we did engage a planning consultant to start the Elmira core area project, which was more along the lines of dealing with some of the properties in the downtown and looking at some urban design issues and density and changes. It wasn't meant to look at streetscape. So as it come to our attention that a number of projects are proposed by the region on Arthur and Church Street, and then we were just starting to get involved and giving some input. And it was thought that maybe we should have a more of a comprehensive look to give us direction so we can respond to the region and kind of just create a more comprehensive look for the whole downtown on terms of streetscape. So the company we're working with, the planning partnership, does have the skills. They have landscape staff involved, and they're already working on the downtown core. So we thought it'd make a great plan to get them to wrap in the streetscape project. So staff is recommending that we require them to take on the streetscape project. It won't impact the current program for the core. It'll just be meshed together. We'll keep the timelines the same, but the cost is $15,000 to go forward with those works. The funding for this, staff is proposing, we have $50,000 in the budget for this year that was spent for the core area project. We know we won't be spending all the $50,000 this year, so we'll be using maybe half of it this year. And then we did already budget for next year to put about $50,000 in case, depending on what we didn't use this year. So between this year and next year, we think we can fund it just from the way we source things at the moment. So we probably spend maybe half of it this year on the streetscape program, which means about $7,500 potentially for next year. So there's going to be no major hit to the budget or impact things, but it is a cost of $15,000, but we think would give a better overall comprehensive plan for the downtown. We did provide you a sample of what one of these would look like when produced. So that is attached to the staff report just as a sample for council to take a look at. If there's any questions, I'll be free to answer them.
Sorry, any questions from council for Mr. Vink? Councillor McMillan.
Not a question for Mr. Vink, just a comment. Just thank you for bringing this forward. I think that this is extremely necessary. I think it was last meeting we were at, Councillor Merlehan, you were talking about your frustration with dealing with the region with making pedestrian access in our downtown. I think Mayor Shantz, you had taken a request from one of our retirement homes about creating more safe pedestrian access in and around the retirement home. I think something like this gives us credibility when we make that request. It's no longer, somebody writing a letter. It's no longer, just a councillor. It is our council, and it is backed by experts, and it is a well thought out and a fully formed request that we're making. And I think this gives us more credibility when we're asking the region to give us a downtown that people can live in and not just drive through. And so I thank our staff for bringing this proposal forward, and I really hope that we can approve it, because I think that this is a key step to making the Elmira downtown a more livable place.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of council? Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, I would echo those comments as well, and I think it's wise to add this to what we're actually doing rather than after the fact and have something in the works and then all of a sudden decide that we want to change something. So it's probably better to plan ahead. rather than planning behind the fact. So yeah, I agree with Councilor McMillan that it's a good idea.
Okay, Mayor Shantz.
Yeah, likewise, we're gonna have some work being done on this street anyway, and the last thing we want to do is, get the work done from the region and then turn around the next year and say, oh, but we want this instead. So the timing is good, and I think it'll be good to have an overall plan for our downtown and how we want it to look going forward.
Okay, great. Mr. Vink, can you give us the timeline on this? I believe the other report is due in February. Is that still the case, adding the Streetscape project that we'll see a final report in February?
Yes, Councilor Marland is chair. Yes, we are still looking for February, March for a recommendation report to come back in terms of the core area, and this will become part of it too, as the streetscape. So everything should come together in spring of 2022.
Okay, and this the first part of the streetscape, or not the streetscaping, but the overview, council members and key people were interviewed by the planning partnership. Will something like that happen again on this end, or have they already heard enough from us about our thoughts on the downtown and what we think needs to happen?
So yeah, they've already approached council and are working through a few other groups at this point in time, including the BIA. So they're getting a lot of input. We do have that public meeting coming up next week on the 29th for the community to give input. So that'll all be happening. In terms of the streetscape, however, they have subtly asked questions here and there already, which they kind of chatted to council a little bit about, and they'll be doing the same in these other discussions. So they're going to be compiling this all together. So they've already started actually kind of working on this a little bit on their own accord, just to start getting us going. So.
Okay, perfect. Anybody from council want to move the recommendation? Mayor Shantz, Councilor Shantz, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Jeremy. Next, we are going to get our Q3 quarterly report from Treasurer Mr. Petherick. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So attached to the year-to-date report for Q3 is the financial statements, both from an operating and a capital perspective. So some of the things I just want to highlight from the report to you is that at the end of the third quarter, so that's ending September 30th, we were sitting at about $7.6 million of our net operating levy budget spent, which creates for us a positive operating variance of about 4.31%, meaning we're in a surplus position about $463,000. So if you look, as the report indicates, this is pretty consistent to what we saw in the second quarter. Now, a couple of things that we've been tracking throughout the year, and we've been bringing this to council through the various quarterly reports, and to highlight it again in here, one of the ones we've been tracking is the supplemental tax revenue. We identified that there were some properties or houses that were missed being picked up by MPAC, and they've now been picked up this year. So at the end of the third quarter, we've seen a supplemental tax about $567,000. Now, to remind council, we only ended up putting in $220,000 into the budget. So this is significantly over our budget target, which is good. And it kind of drives into why we are at a surplus position. But also just to highlight to council, of that $567,000, we actually have only included a prorated amount. So which means we kind of looked at it from the perspective of saying, let's try to smooth the revenue out over the year, take the 567 kind of divided by 12, multiply by 9. So there's only 3/4 of the year is included in these statements right now. I think the other thing to highlight that we've been tracking is still with our recreation and community services. And I would say the struggles and the triumphs that they've been going through the pandemic of trying to get themselves ramped back up to where they were at pre-pandemic levels. So as council recall, we thankfully had some safe restart monies from the federal and the province that we had in our 2021 budget that was carried forward from 2020 of about $361,000. Now, again, to help smooth things over, to not to overinflate where we are in a position from either a deficit or, in this case, a surplus, we still did the same thing where we actually only added 3/4 of that 361,000 in the budget. However, what we have taken out of these statements so far is, I think as we reported to council before, we have received $447,000 through the COVID-19 recovery fund. So none of those monies are included in these statements. They were never budgeted for in 2021. And the reason why we chose to do that is because I think some of the things we're seeing is how we're going to be ramping up the recreation programming and the services as we start to climb into 2022. So I think as we went through the budget development report, council said if there's anything that we see as we're developing the 2022 budget that council needs to be aware of, to bring it forward as part of this quarterly report. So as such, this is why we're kind of highlighting this, because we're starting to see that as RCS, or Recreation Community Services, is trying to develop their 2022 budgets, and in turn trying to get most from the, I would say from the expenditure side, it's easy because once you start to open up the facilities, the expenditures are there. I think the tough part for them is trying to predict where the revenues are going to go. And with this pandemic, I mean, we've seen ups and downs, and it's always hard to tell exactly where we're going. We look like, and I'm hoping that we are going to continue on the trend that, you know, we are going to get ourselves out of this in 2022. But trying to budget for where the revenues are going to end up is a bit of a challenge for staff. So what we're going to be able to do is, if we can keep most of this 447,000 from the COVID-19 recovery fund and be able to put that into the 2022 budget, that's going to help us not have a big upswing in our tax rate. It's not going to cause that pressure. It's going to help us actually get back up to those pre-pandemic levels in that department. However, one of the things I want to point to council that not on the revenue side is, but more on the expenditure side that I captured in the report, is still on winter control. It's been a while since we talked about it, but I think as we've seen the white fluffy stuff that's been, you know, hanging around our area as of late, it is something that we need to be mindful about and pay attention to. So as the report says, at the end of the third quarter, we had about 22% of our winter control budget remaining. That's equates to about $157,000, which is very similar to where we were at this time last year. But as we know, really that last part of December in 2020, we saw about $280,000 in expenses. So as you can tell, that 157, depending on how the winter really starts and hits, it can easily end up in a deficit position, which in turn, if that happens, the surplus position we're in right now will actually start to decrease because of that. Just sort of moving on a little bit to the water and wastewater budgets. So at the end of the third quarter, the water wastewater program is still in a surplus position, albeit just a little bit less than where we were at the end of the second quarter, still in a surplus, about $211,000. And the water program is just in a small deficit of just shy of $17,000, which is pretty good for a budget this size. I think getting down to, would have been nice if it was on the surplus side, but even 16 on the deficit side, you know, we're getting close to zero, and that's always a goal you're trying to do, is keep yourself on budget. So I think in essence, it's pretty close to our budget targets. Just really highlighting from the capital side, as the appended capital summary sheet says, we provided comments to council. So there is an indication of how those projects are going, and we're identifying any areas that council needs to be aware of. And with that, any questions that council may have, I'd be happy to take them, as well as we have directors and managers online that would also be happy to take them.
Okay, thank you for that update. Council, Mayor Shantz has a question.
Thanks. Thanks, Richard. I was having a little trouble following. So we've got all our expenses included in this report, including whatever we spent on COVID, but we don't have the COVID revenue in this report. Is that correct?
Through Mr. Chairman, so what we have included in this is what we budgeted for, and we budgeted for the Safe Restart monies of 361,000. That's what we have in the 2021 budget, and so instead of putting the whole entire 361,000 in, which kind of makes it seem like you've overinflated your revenue, we've kind of smoothed it out and only added 3/4 of that into these statements right now. But definitely the monies we budgeted for are in this budget. What we didn't put into these statements right now is the additional 447,000 we received to the COVID recovery fund, because they weren't budgeted. And since we are in a surplus position, we want to kind of retain as much of that as we can to help the recreation and community services and even other departments that may need funding due to COVID as we get into 2022.
Okay, so those will show up in, those will show up year end. I'm getting an echo. They'll show up at year end, and then we'll just carry them over.
Yeah, so absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else with questions? Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Through you to Richard. Since winter control is a problem every year, I can recall the days that we had a reserve for winter control, a 5-year average, I believe it was. For some reason, now that you got rid of it, maybe it's time we go back to that.
So through Mr. Chairman, we still have the reserve. There's very little money, and I think there's only about 24,000, I think, in that reserve right now. And we were trying to put monies into that reserve to help sort of build it up when we were in a surplus position in winter control. That unfortunately hasn't happened, not for quite a while. I think that's how we ended up getting money in the first place. So hopefully maybe this year we'll actually get back and that we can actually be in a surplus position in winter control and put money in. But again, you know, those are the things that are out of our control.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schatz.
A couple of things that I noticed, probably don't have an answer for it, but on the very last page of the first report in the fire, I noticed the false alarms and the medical are really high compared to other years, and just I don't know whether anybody has an explanation for that, but at the bottom line, it looks like we're getting better at recovering. So is that true, or how is that working?
Through Mr. Chairman, yes, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that. I think that is something we can talk to our fire chief, Dennis Allis, about and see if we can get an answer for council on that.
And the other question I had was on the other report, are we into that one yet, or the number side, or no?
Not yet. That'll be settled down there, Councillor Schatz. Anybody else have any questions for about the Q3 report? So I just have one question, and it would be through me to maybe somebody in RCS or you, Richard. I'm just wondering, this year, is the recreation and community services, are they ramping up their budget like January, February, they're going to go business as usual, like pre-COVID, or is there a rollout planned? Or I'm just curious how they're approaching the budget this year.
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking that Thomas, who's on the line, may be the better one to answer that, to know exactly where they're heading. But from my understanding is that, you know, with ice being especially in our arenas, you know, that to me is a bit of a ramp up, you know, from services. So then as you have more people in the building, you know, you consume more electricity. You know, even our pool is open again, so that you know, has a cost to it. I just don't think we've seen the revenue side sort of come in to kind of help offset some of those costs. And that's what I mean by ramping up is that not only are we ramping up our facilities from a cost perspective, but we're hoping to ramp up our facilities and what we're offering from programming and facility rentals and the like. But maybe Thomas has some additional things to say.
Yeah, okay, that's great. I just if we can get an overview of what the public could expect of what you're planning for 2022, Thomas, that'd be great.
Yeah, further to Richard. So there are still a number of our facilities still closed, our community centers, that sort of thing. And just with requirements that are in place right now, legislative requirements with regards to vaccine passports, that sort of thing, we haven't been able to open those yet. So we aren't realizing revenues at those facilities yet. The plan is for 2022 at this point in time to put our, we're projecting our revenues to be similar to where they were pre-COVID to 2019. And if we do run into issues as the year progresses and we're not able to open our facilities, that sort of thing, realize those revenues as we did in 2019, there is the additional COVID funding that Mr. Patrick has referenced as well too, that we will have the opportunity to utilize.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on this one before we move on? Nope. Okay, Mr. Patrick, thank you for your Q3 report. And now you can get to what Councillor Shantz really wants to talk about is your fees and charges report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as part of our budget process, we annually look at our fees and charges and start to see, what fees need to be increased, what new fees may need to be added. So the various departments and staff in those departments, have gone through all their fees and charges and are recommending certain fees go up, but they're also recommending that some fees stay static as to where they are in 2021. So appended to this report is with Appendix A and Appendix B are the fees and charges changes in the general township services. So that's the like of engineering, development engineering, and recreation and community services, as well as Appendix B, which is for the planning services. So that are the areas that are looking at changes in 2022. So with that, as I said before, the directors and managers that came up with these fees and charges are on the line, and they'd be happy along with me to answer any questions that council may have.
Councillor Shantz.
Actually, it was the last report I had a comment on, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. It was in the numbers, and it was Gibson Park, and it had a different number. Are all the bills in for that upgrade on the washrooms, or are we missing some because there seemed to be quite a gap there?
Yeah, to you, Mr. Chairman. So there is another invoice that just came in, and we're kind of working through that as well.
Okay, thank you. And so I do have a comment on this or a question on this. When we get into Schedule A, and it's the renewal for the not-for-profit kennel license and the for-profit kennel license. First of all, I didn't realize we had a not-for-profit kennel, but it seems funny that that fee went down if it's 15 dogs or more. And everything else went up. Is that just a typo? Should that have been 80 instead of 60, or is there a reason that went down?
Yes, Clerk Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. The fee did go down because we are moving to a process that allows the planning department to really take this over, and kennels will become well, I hope I'm getting the language right, and I'm sure Jeremy will correct me if I'm not, but an on-farm diversified use. And the fee that is charged by the clerk's department will only cover the clerk's processing of that fee. So the application fees will go down, but we are recommending a small increase to the annual licensing fee that the kennels will pay.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a typo.
Okay, Mayor Shantz.
I suspect the not-for-profit kennel is the Lions. Yeah, Jeff's nodding.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, I have just one kind of related question to what Clerk Smith was just talking about kennels. At one point, we were talking about reviewing bylaws for kennels and such, and I'm just wondering if we could have any kind of an update with that process if that started.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we are looking at that bylaw still. One of the first things we did want to look at, though, is this shift which has already been made to the on-farm diversified use. And so we're working on that process right now. And then we'll look at the next process, which is updating our animal control bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions for fees and charges, we do have a recommendation. Would anybody be prepared to move that? Councillor Schatz and Councillor McMillan, all those in favor? And that's carried. Other business, does anybody have any council reports or updates they want to provide? None. We have an outstanding activity list. We haven't looked at that in a really long time. I don't know. Let's not make tonight the night. Oh, Councillor Martin wants a.
Can I go back just a minute?
Sure.
To council reports and updates, and I don't know if Mayor Shantz can help me with this, probably not. Do we have any statistics on how our speed cameras are working in the township? Or is that something you keep pretty close to your heart?
Oh, I don't give that out, but Jared might.
Well, you get all the revenue from that, right, Mayor Shantz?
Oh, you're talking about the regional ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that at the moment. I can ask for it.
You've only got the one, right?
We've got two, I think, don't we?
There will be one
There's
on
one
Clearway.
going, yeah.
Oh, Jared's online. Mr. Poupet, you can answer the question for Councillor Martin.
Sure, thank you. Through you, Chair Merlehan, to Councillor Martin. Currently, there is one on in Winterburn at the Christian Foundation School, and then there will be another one coming, like Chairman Merlehan said, on Three Bridges Road by Clearview Mennonite School. But you know, in order to ensure the integrity of the program, you know, I can say that there are a number of tickets being handed out as the cameras are picking up, obviously, speeders through those school zones. That's quite unfortunate, but it is hopefully it will be effective in slowing motorists down. But the region, you know, is looking after all the administrative aspects of the program. The municipalities are just really identifying school zone locations, but the region is keeping everything quite close to their vest, as you had noted, for obvious reasons, to ensure integrity of the program.
Okay, thank you for that update. Are you good with that, Councillor Martin? Yeah, okay. I guess we're back to activity list. Nobody wants to talk about anything there. Notice of motion, we don't have one, and we're just back to adjournment. So who wants to move that recommendation? Councillor Redekop and Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? And that's carried. I just have to read one final little statement here. In closing, Council would like to thank all who participated or tuned into the meeting tonight on our YouTube live stream. Council, please stay connected on Zoom until we receive confirmation that the live stream has stopped. Good night, everyone.